Good evening and welcome to another edition of Down to the Wire. I'm your host, derbiologist, and joining me again this week is Capping with Candice. Candice here, and Candice, this week on Down to the Wire, we decided to take kind of a different feel of races and kind of go around the country. We're going to start off Friday afternoon, and the pedigrees really caught my attention in this juvenile race in Race 3 on Friday.
Yes, this is a race that we talked about it privately a little bit when we saw the draw come out. We were both pretty excited about a few of the horses that we saw in here. Maybe not necessarily for this specific race, but for going forward and maybe developing as the year goes on and as they stretch out a little bit. And I know when I talked to you, to me the horse that really pedigree-wise stuck out to me was Sunday Sonnet. Is by Any Given Saturday, and out of Red Piano, who's a Red Ransom mare. And Sunday Sonnet is a half to pianist. If you remember, she was a very nice older female who ran over on the turf and was a multiple grade 6 winner. So this is kind of an interesting horse in that maybe we'll end up seeing her going on the turf or whatnot. She has been working very quickly at short distances, so I wouldn't completely write her off here. She has, her past two works are both very fast, and Kelly Breen's been really good with this type. Well, been pretty good with this type for sure. And Any Given Saturday, at least so far this year, has been fairly successful first time out. I think he's had 19 starters. I think 5 have won first time out, which isn't too shabby. So this isn't a horse I'd completely write out, but for me, I'm just really interested in seeing where she goes from here. I just kind of want to see her go, get a run under her belt, and kind of move on, because I think that she might be one to really look out for when they stretch out a little bit later on in the year. As far as this race is concerned in and of itself, there is a Fletcher horse in here. She breaks from the outside, and she's a Bernardini filly, so I would expect her to go out favored. That's we kind of know how it is with the Fletchers, and he's so good first time out that I would definitely expect her to go out favored. For me, I'm just going to watch this race, but if you're betting this race, I would go with High Dollar Woman. She was just recently sold over at the OBS Marge sale for $675,000. She just fired a bullet last time out. This is a horse who's fast, and it's 5 furlongs, so there's not much strategy that goes into it. You just want the horse who's the fastest one, and I do think High Dollar Woman might fit that though.
Angela Renee is not just a Bernardini filly. She's actually a full sister to To Honor and Serve. And To Honor and Serve was kind of a horse that I was invested some futures in a few years ago. And he developed early and ran a nice race as a juvenile. Kind of had a few problems at Gulfstream Park in the spring of his 3-year-old year. And then still ended up winning the Pennsylvania Derby and ran in the Breeders' Cup Classic the year that Drosselmeyer won. So he's she's got definitely the pedigree. She's a homebred, which is kind of interesting, and as you mentioned, Todd Fletcher trains. Another horse that caught my eye was the $675,000 filly, and kind of some interesting first crop of Super Saver, and a couple of Midnight Lutes in here. And even though the Midnight Lutes haven't been able to stretch out, he's been a very good sire with first-time starters and winning in sprint races.
Yeah, he definitely has. I mean, that's one of the ones I would look for going this distance, going 5 furlongs, because they just kind of have that raw talent, raw speed. I think at the end of the day, this is kind of a fun betting race. I mean, you got to think that the Fletcher horse is going to take a lot of money here, and I don't necessarily think it's that clear cut.
Yeah, the last time I know a couple weeks ago, Fletcher debuted a Mike Repole horse and it won at 1-9, but I think this one's made a little bit different betting on the board. And also, I know Bill Mott brings out a couple of homebreds, and he's the type of trainer that a lot of his good horses, he'll give them a start and then really crank them up for their second start. So the possibility could be that some of these horses may have their winning race in them at Saratoga. Rudy Rodriguez has been cold lately, but he's got a couple of horses in here. So I think even the Malibu Moon horse on Oaks Day has kind of got some a speedy breeding. Malibu Moon has increased the quality of his mares the last couple of years, but this is out of a tactical cat mare, and a lot of those show speed. So I think this is one to watch, maybe put a few horses in my stable mail, and maybe some of the homebreds maybe develop down the road. Now Saturday on the turf at Belmont, kind of some familiar horses. I guess what kind of evens out maybe this field a little bit in the New York Stakes on the turf is the distance, and maybe the slow fractions may bunch this field up.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely kind of the matchup I've been hoping for, to see Tannery versus Riposte. I mean, there's a couple of the nice horses in here, and Inimitable Romane and Viva Raffaella, I think, are both pretty nice, but I do think they're cut below both Tannery and Riposte, who I think at their best are, you know, top of the class of grade 2, and or maybe you could say they're both grade 1 horses. Um, for me here, I'm going to side with Riposte. She's a horse I've thought highly of for a long time. I liked her over in Europe. We just finished Royal Ascot this year. She won at Royal Ascot last year in the Ribbonsdale, and she really, got a lot of hype after that race, and then just kind of tailed off a little bit, without reason. But since she's came over here, I thought she's ran quite well. I think a lot of people really expected her to come over here and just, dominate, and she hasn't done that. I think it's taken a little bit of time to, pick her spots and find out what distance really does suit her best. 10 furlongs seems right up her alley to me. While I was surprised by the running style they implemented with her last time out, having her, wire them, I do think that obviously proved to be effective. She won the race. And over what I don't think is her preferred ground, I do think she really does, at the end of the day, want firm ground, being by Danzili and based off her record overseas before she came here. So I was really impressed with that race, and she breaks from the two posts, and Tannery breaks from the rail. And Tannery is the type that she can run closer, but she typically runs her best races when she drops back. And while I don't expect her to be at the back of the pack, I certainly don't expect her to be up on the lead. And in doing that, I think you're basically handing her post the rail. And if you're going to give her the rail and you're going to give her the lead, and if she can get away with the fractions that she got away with last time out, I think she's going to be really tough. Plus, at the end of the day, I do think Tannery wants further than this. I think, while I'm really excited about this matchup at 10 furlongs, I would love to see these two going just a touch further. I think they're both better going further than this, but I do think Riposte is better at this distance. I think this is, Tannery's won going shorter against lesser quality, but I think against, a quality filly like Riposte, I think Tannery really, is at her best going just a touch further than this. So for that reason, I'm going to side with Riposte here. I expect Tannery to go up favored, but more than anything, this isn't a race I'm going to, put a bunch of money on, but I'm really excited just to watch it because, these are two of the better, older mares that we have in this division, so it's going to be fun to see them go at each other.
This is a tough race. I think the fractions will be slow, and it'll kind of ensure a bunched-up field. But I've been very impressed with Riposte, and actually I'm pretty confident of Riposte in this spot. In fact, if I had to put a morning line, a value line on her, I'd be willing to take 4 to 5 odds. I think she is a very strong play in a race like this, and I just think the way the race sets up, the fractions, the way the jockeys are going to ride the race, I think Riposte is really going to benefit from the pace here. And I kind of agree with you. Tannery is going to be taken a little bit out of her element. Gathering intrigues me a little bit as kind of the oddball play here. Good trainer, good connections, and runs a big race every once in a while. And the distance may be right up her alley. But Riposte is really a strong play for me in this spot. I think Tannery's going to go favor, but I wouldn't be surprised if Riposte takes a pretty good chunk of money in this race.
I don't know. I do think Tannery's going to be favored, but I do think those two odds bets are going to be, separated from the rest of the group. I think they both are the clear standouts here. One thing with Tannery, this is her second start off the layoff. So even though she won last time out against, what I'd consider lesser company than Riposte, you have to maybe expect her to improve a little bit off that effort.
Later on Saturday, we go out west, and they're changing the name this year. It'll always be the Hollywood Gold Cup to me, but this year they're calling it the Gold Cup at Santa Anita. And Game On Dude has been pointed to this race since a loss the last time at the Bull Ring out east.
He has. I mean, he's kind of one of these. He's been around long enough that we kind of know where he's going to run every year. It's, nearly the same schedule as last year so far, if not exactly the same, actually. This is his race to lose. I mean, anytime he's in a race, it's his race to lose. He will go up favored. We know the deal with him now. By now we know that when he gets these, nice, easy leads, he's peace out, gone, won the race easily. as we saw in the big cap. But when he's challenged up front, I think he tends to struggle more. And, we saw that, kind of at Charlestown a bit with Moreno up there. And, he really kind of struggled in that sort of a spot. And I think Fury Cap Corey is going to be a big hindrance to Game on Dude here. Because Fury Cap Corey, I'm a little bit perplexed by why he's here, because I think this is way too far for him. But he's fast. We know that much. And we've seen Hollendorfer do similar things with Blue Skies and Rainbows. So I think Fury Cap Corey is going to be sent. And I think that definitely, is going to be a thorn in the side of Game on Dude. Could he still win? Sure. I mean, this, even though, this is a big race every year, I wouldn't consider this, the deepest field we've ever seen in this race by a long shot. So he definitely could still win it. But in that type of a situation, I like to bet against him when he's going to be challenged up front. When you take him out of the equation for the win, then it really becomes an interesting race, because you think maybe the next logical plays are Clubhouse Ride, Imperative, Fury Cap Corey. But I don't think any of the three of those really want this distance. Fury Cap Corey, I think, really wants much shorter, maybe 8 to 8.5 furlongs. Clubhouse Ride and Imperative do their best running about 9 furlongs. So for me, I ultimately landed on Majestic Harbor. And this is a horse who I think I've talked about a little bit on here before the Californian, but he has one going further. He won going 12 furlongs earlier in the year. So he's one who I know definitely wants, every bit of this distance. It might be a touch short, to be honest. But he just had wide trip after wide trip every time. And, he still is always closing, but these wide trips are just kind of killing him a little bit here. So I think he's going to relish going further than he did last time out. He last ran in the Grade 2 Californian. We saw Clubhouse Ride won there. Fury Cap Corey finished second there. And in that race, he went 56 feet more than Clubhouse Ride, who won the race. So, that equates to about 6.5 lengths, and yet he only finished 2 3/4 lengths back. And he was closing pretty quickly. So he was the one who I definitely took out of that race. And so I'm excited that he's in the spot. If Game on Dude really kind of gets into trouble with Fury Cap Corey up front, Majestic Harbor is going to be coming late. And I think, of the horses who want this distance, that he is kind of the class of that group. So he'll be my play on top, Majestic Harbor. Game on Dude will be in it. I just never really want to take him when he's going to be challenged for the lead, because that is, just a situation where he's proven time and time again to be vulnerable. We have a couple horses coming in from, Central and South America with some interesting pedigrees. I watched a little bit of them on video, and I know for me personally, I was more taken by Lideris in the video. This is a Kentucky bred by Ms. and Mass out of a Dynaformer mare. That pedigree, we think of Ms. and Mass as a little bit more of a turf sire more than a dirt sire, but, if we think of him, remember he did win on the dirt. He won twice at Santa Anita, in the Malibu and the Strub. And he has had occasionally, and every now and then, he sires one who's won on the dirt. So, I wouldn't completely write him off for that breeding. And, just that Ms. and Mass out of Dynaformer, that just makes me think of, a hardy horse, a horse who wants to go this far. I mean, in the video I saw of him, he was going 10 furlongs, and, he definitely seemed to be kind of a grinding type that wears you down coming down the stretch. So, he's one who I could just see kind of being game and kind of gutting out, a second or third place finish here. I know we kind of have our little, our South American, expert in Siggy Mendoza from Twitter, and he prefers Salto de Indio. He thinks that he's, a classier horse, and he did say that the Grade 1 that Lideris just won in March in Peru is a race that every year it alternates between countries, and whenever it's in Peru, that you don't always get the best horses, because the Peruvian track's kind of a specialist track. And in fact, the top 3 in that race all are horses who've exclusively won at Peru. So it might be just something to consider when you're looking into his past performances.
I think Game on Dude, one of the things, he's kind of a little bit underappreciated. I mean, he went through the battles, and he gets a little knocked because he hasn't actually won the Breeders' Cup Classic, but he's a lifetime 50% horse, and you got to remember this guy was, running out at Gulfstream back as a 3-year-old early on in his career, and then went down to Texas, and then the last 3 years has really become one of the top older horses. So I think Fury Cap Corey is quality speed, but I don't think he has enough class to really mess with a horse like Game on Dude. And now Gary Stevens is also riding Fury Cap Corey this time, and I'm not sure he's going to be as aggressive as Martin Pedroza rode Blue Skies and Rainbow. So to me, I would probably take Game On Dude, but I like your idea of playing these your horses coming in from Central America. And Salto de Indio is interesting because he ran in full fields, 13, 16, 15 horse fields, and he also carried a lot of weight. And he's ran in some Grade 1 races, and that's the one thing that class kind of seems to carry over, especially at the Grade 1 level. Grade 2 and Grade 3 doesn't meet as much. So, and they seem to be distance specialists, kind of like when we handicapped the Belmont Stakes.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case. I think they have, some of their top quality races out there are, similar to here, going, 10 furlongs or so. And I think some of their racetracks down there tend to be kind of slow, but because of that, I think the horses who come up tend to be real fit and ready to go.
So do you think this is a way to make some money, or kind of what's your betting strategy approach? Are you trying to beat the favorite here, or what are you doing?
I'm going to try to beat Game On Dude. I mean, this isn't a race that I'm going to play a whole lot of money in because, he's a classy enough that I definitely respect his ability. But anytime I see him in a situation where I do think he's going to be challenged in the lead by a horse who I genuinely think is fast enough to challenge him, and as I think Fury Cap Corey is, then I'll play against him. For me, it's the place Majestic Harbor. But yeah, I'm definitely against Game On Dude. I avoid Game On Dude races when he's going to get a soft lead. I think then it's over. But here, I think there's a pretty good chance he goes down.
For me, I'm going to try to beat the not as classy American horses for second. So I'm going to go Game On Dude just on top of Salto de Indio and then the other horse and Lideris, and try to catch an exacta. And I just think a horse like Fury Cap Corey wants no part of 10 furlongs. And yeah. I think Imperative loved the bull ring and got a great ride the last time. So I think Game On Dude's been pointed for this race. He's freshened, and I know a freshened, tough Game On Dude is a pretty salty horse, especially at Santa Anita this time of the year. Now we go to the cornfields of Iowa. If you build it, they will come. Prairie, Meadows, and one of my favorite races of the year. It's always the Iowa Festival of Racing, and a good field for the Iowa Derby this year.
It certainly is. I mean, we got a couple nice names showing up here for this race, which is good to see. You have to think this field's highlighted by Vicar in Trouble, who, I don't know if there's many horses we've talked about more on here than Vicar in Trouble, to be honest. I mean, he was one who, was on our radar way back on the Kentucky Derby Trail back in January when he won the Lecomte and, in front-running fashion. And then he had a little bit of trouble in the Risen Star, breaking from that wide post, but came back and won the Louisiana Derby wire to wire. And, the Kentucky Derby, that's always kind of a wild race, and I think that definitely was going to be too far for him no matter what. But, you have to say that was maybe one of the more bizarre rides that we've seen in a race that was full of rides. That was maybe one of the more bizarre ones. Vicar's in Trouble's nice. I mean, he's going to be hammered. The morning line on him is ridiculous. It's at 3-1. There's no way. If he's 3-1, I mean, I'll be shocked. He's going to go off at like 8-5. 3-1 is ridiculous. So he's not going to be that. But, is he an 8-5 shot in this field? I'm not so sure. I mean, I think he's one of these horses that, when he gets his way, he's really tough. And he's not. I don't think he's going to get his way here. That I definitely see a fast pace in here with. The I Got It All and Jessica Starr and Embellishing Bob. I definitely expect them to be up near the front. So I don't see Vickers and Chubb being handed the lead like he has been in the past. I mean, you have to remember his races in Louisiana when he wired them. It wasn't, he wasn't flying up front. I mean, he was going up and setting slow factions and being kind of handed the lead, which he's not going to get here. And I'm inclined to think a little bit that some of these horses, they haven't necessarily passed him, but they've caught up with him a little bit in ability. Another interesting one here is Embellishing Bob. If you remember 2 back over in the Derby Trail for the Kentucky Derby, he won that race by disqualification after Bayern. Bayern was disqualified for drifting out onto him. Bayern, of course, came back and won the Woody Stevens in very impressive fashion. Embellishing Bob was also in that field. I think he was just a little bit outclassed there. So he's dropping down to, I think, what is really a more reasonable spot for him here at Prairie Meadows. For me, I'm really intrigued by a horse named Charge Now. This is a Tis Now horse who's a half to Super Saver, who of course won the Kentucky Derby back in 2010, out of Supercharger, who's an AP Indy mare. He was a horse who really caught my attention in his maiden break. Well, it wasn't his maiden break, it was his debut out at Gulfstream over the turf. And in that race, he didn't have any one major thing go wrong, but a lot of little things. Like early on, there was about a row of 4 horses, and he was in the 3 path of that row and was just squeezed out to, had to check a little bit up behind them. And then didn't have a lot of room trying to come home and close, to get in there. He ended up finishing second, and I was kind of taken by that performance, for a horse on debut to kind of overcome troubles like that and still salvage a pretty good finish. He's run twice since then, both going this distance over the dirt. He won both of them, being near or on the lead. I really hope he sits kind of behind that first flight of horses, which I think will happen. I mean, he's a horse who's ran near the lead in his races, but I don't think he's necessarily super, super speedy. So I expect him to sit behind that first flight, and, he's so lightly raced. He's only run 3 times. So whereas, a horse like Vicar's in Trouble, we've seen time and time again, and we know what he's all about. I think Charge Now could really be a horse who, still has a little bit of room for improving him, and, just maybe is more exposed than the rest here. This is, a mott horse, so, definitely has good connections, and I think he's well meant in this spot. So Charge Now is, of the more of the outsiders, if you're not really sold on Vicar's in Trouble and Embellishing Bob, who I'm not. I mean, of the 2, I definitely prefer Vicar's in Trouble, but I'm not really super sold on either of them at the prices they're going to be. I think Charge Now can offer a little bit of value in this race.
Well, as someone that's attended the Iowa Festival of Racing a few times, I highly recommend the pork sandwiches trackside. A great big sandwich for $4. But some people may not know the layout of Altoona. It's always hot. You can predict usually about 90-degree temperatures. It's usually windy. And the track is usually very hard and very baked. And so usually the horses run pretty fast, and it can be kind of a stingy surface. And also, Altoona is not a very wide track. So inside position in mile and a 16th races is key. So I think Vicar will be tough with his speed. I also have been a pretty big fan of Vicar all along. Interesting, Embellishing Bob beat Bayern at Churchill Downs, as you mentioned, and then he lost to him by 11 lengths and in the last race in the Woody. And I think that kind of shows a little bit. I mean, that race by Bayern in the Woody Stevens wasn't so much Embellishing Bob regressing. I just think Bayern really ran their feet off that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. I mean, I think Bayern was one who, he was another one too that back at Santa Anita, his debut just kind of really caught people's attention, and we expected him to improve by leaps and bounds. And maybe it just took him a little more. I mean, he had a couple little niggles along the way, but I think he's one that he needed time. And once he got the time he needed, he's matured into, just a really fast horse. And, while I think he's one who is going to be a major player going on this year, I don't necessarily think the same for Embellishing Bob, even though, he beat Bayern by disqualification. Embellishing Bob, to me, I think ran the race of his life there.
What's interesting, a lot of times trainers will kind of bring, since there's 6 stakes races over the 2 days, they'll bring 3 or 4 horses. And a trainer that usually does very well in this series every year is Steve Asmussen. And he's got 6 spot here, and he's a son of Cowboy Kale, who's a son of Giants Causeway. And this horse is kind of going up the ladder, but if you noticed, he ran against class leader at Pimlico and then ran some nice races at Oaklawn Park. And Oaklawn's got a short stretch as well. And he gets an inside post position and 5-to-1 morning line, and a good jock and Ricardo Santana on board.
Yeah, 6 Spot was another one who intrigued me in here for kind of the reasons that you said, that in the races he's run against, yes, he's still kind of climbing up the ladder, but he's run against some of the better horses kind of in this area. I mean, like you said, he ran against Class Leader and Life in Shambles and Bourbonize, and he beat good old Firestarter from back in the day, who we talked about, that Tappet. So, he's maybe running against more quality horses than, say, Charge Now. But, so I definitely think he's one who also could make noise here. I'm not necessarily sold on the favorites in this spot. I think this is a lot more wide open race. And, at this point we've kind of seen some of these, horses who ran the Kentucky Derby start to run back to that effort if they didn't run, any other races in the Triple Crown Series after that. So it's really, I think some of those were a lot more one-sided. I think Temperature's race we kind of knew he's going to win there. So I think, a race like this, I don't think Vicar's in trouble as nearly the lock that we've seen some of those other horses be when they came back from that effort off the Kentucky Derby. And Six Spot definitely is one. I mean, I think there's only kind of a handful of horses here who could really challenge Vickers, and I think Six Spot is definitely one of them. I mean, his speed figures are right there with Vickers, so, whereas some of these might have to find a little something to get there.
Well, one of the things that I pointed out to you along the Derby Trail this year was kind of the local trainer, local jockey angle, and I want to mention Smack Smack. And Smack Smack is one of the more cleverly named horses. The sire is Closing Argument, and the mare is Smack Meadows. But anyways, this is a local jock, Jake Barton, who has been riding at Prairie Meadows for years, kind of like Centennial on Ring Weekend at Tampa Bay. And Don Von Hamel does very well at Prairie Meadows and in the Midwest circuit. And this horse is one of the few closers in this race. But he also has a little bit of class. I mean, he ran the Prairie Meadows Juvenile, he ran in the Kip DeVille, the Clever Trevor. To me, he's the one closer. Now, I think Speed's going to do well, and I want to be on the inside. A horse like Jessica Star, and even a horse like I Got It All, I think is going to show some speed here. But I think Smack Smack is definitely a horse you want to use in your trifectas, and as a possible win horse. He's really my second pick behind Vickers in Trouble, and that's just because I'm a big fan of Vickers, and I'm just tossing the Derby. I like the jockey switch, and I think sometimes to get a horse back on the beam, I like it when they just drop them in class and try to go for the win. Kind of when me and you were handicapping the Peter Pan Stakes, and we said, you know what, Tonalist just needs to go out here and win this race. And I think that's what they're going to try to do with Vickers in Trouble. Sometimes you get too cute, and all of a sudden your horse is in a 4-race losing streak.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely happens. I don't think that, I think definitely trying to rate him or trying to set him up for the pace here would not be a wise idea. I think we know by now that that's his running style. But I really don't see it being real easy for him up front as far as speed is concerned. One horse you did just mention that I wanted to elaborate a little bit on is Jessica Star, who's another one who, has a little bit of class in his last couple races. He ran against Olenbader and beat him, as well as Twang, who I thought ran really nice over at Keeneland. And he beat Twang and Olenbader at Churchill just 2 months back. And Olenbader came back since then and finished second behind Temperature in the Matt win. So, it's come back and kind of franked that form a little bit there. And Jessica Star has won 2 straight. So the last effort, it was over muddy track, but he bobbled the start and had a very, very wide trip the whole way too. So, even though that, he might be compromised a bit from the speed, I do think there is some class there, and this is a horse who I do think really can challenge Vickers up front. For me, I'm going to side with Charge Now. I just think that horse is a little bit more unexposed than the rest of these. But like I said, this is a wide open race, and I think of the ones we've kind of talked about on here, this might be, the best betting race of, that group.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go Vickers in Trouble, Smack Smack, and then Six Spot. Trying to take a mixture of horses who I think are really pointed for this race, and then I just think Vicar going back to his maiden breaker back at the fairgrounds. I think he did win a couple of races at longer distance with soft fractions, but hopefully he gets back on the beam here because I think he can win some Grade 2 races. I'm not sure if he's a Grade 1 horse, but I do think he's a solid Grade 2 and can make some money. One of the horses I don't like is Charge Now. I actually have had him in my stable mail. He's got some trip notes, and I like him, and I like the pedigree. That last race was pathetic. I mean, that 5-horse field was a Canterbury field in disguise. It was that bad. He was 2-5. He walked the dog with 112 4 fractions. Like, on paper, he looks like he improved, and I really want him to be good. But objectively, I just have to say I'd rather have Smack Smack. I'd rather have Jessica Star. I'd rather have Six Spot than a horse like Charge Now.
I mean, I don't know. I just think you can only beat what you have in front of you, and there's not much you can do if it's a short field that shows up. I'm not necessarily saying that he improved in an effort, but he's done all he could. Since his debut race, he's done all he can. All you can do is beat what's there with you. If he's 8-1, if he drips up to 10 or 12-1, which I think is possible, Vickers is going to take a lot more money then. I mean, his morning line is just stupid ridiculous. So Charge Now could drift up to 10 or so, and I think that that's plenty of value in this spot. And with that trainer, with recent works, like you said, there's plenty of trip notes in his last couple races. I see room for improvement, and if he's double digits, I'll bet on the improvement.
No, I think that's the angle. If you're really betting on him for improvement, 8-1 is worth it. But if you're looking at what he's done, God, I'd say almost 12-1's an underlay. So it's kind of beauty's in the eye of the beholder of that one. I do like the fact that you brought up Ublinator because I'm not a big fan in the quote unquote the flattery angle. What I like to do is match up horses when they run good races that fit their running style, and I thought Ublinator in that allowance race ran a really good race. I like the fact that Jessica Starr, who you mentioned, ran a good race against a horse who ran a good race that day, and then he kind of peaked after that effort in the last race, and there's talk of him maybe moving up to the Jim Dandy. One of the things I don't like about Charge Now as well is, to be honest with you, I already had Charge Now penciled in the Jim Dandy, and I was going to claim him on Friday night as part of my fantasy stable, and now I'm not, because I'm just like, it seems like they should be more confident with this horse.
Maybe, but maybe it's also, this is kind of a softer spot thing. Get him in here, get a win, shock the world, move on.
Oh, now you're doing your football wide receiver reverse thing. I'm watching too many Vikings games over the years.
Oh, no.
I wanted to quick mention the Mother Goose. Of course, my favorite mother of all gooses was back in 1991 with Light and Meadows Star. Untappable. The one thing is I know you've kind of become a fan of this horse just because you think that Steve Asmussen has actually been the only trainer that has been able to, he's kind of the psychiatrist for the Tappets.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what I've seen. I mean, we saw this in this kind of cycle before the Derby and the Oaks with Tapiture and with Untappable, who I think both of them at times as juveniles showed points where they would over-race and kind of, show those, what we'd say, like those Tappet tendencies. And he really, while they're not completely eliminated, he toned them down to such a point that, they can both run and win, high quality races. And I mean, obviously Untappable won the Oaks, and Tapiture just most recently won them at Wynn. And so I do think that he kind of has figured these guys out. I mean, I told you I did some research into, historically the Tappets, and from what I had seen, at least in the last 5 years, Tappet had a few multiple graded stakes winners, and of the ones, I think 5 of them had won graded stakes in more than 1 year, as opposed to getting on like a hot streak and winning 3 races in a row. There were 5 of them that really developed and won over consecutive years, and of those 5, 3 of them were trained by Steve Asmussen. And already this year, I think he definitely has had one Tappet juvenile win, at least one. So I do think he's kind of figured these guys out, which has made me kind of a fan of Untappable, and I'm really kind of interested in seeing how both those horses, both Tapiture and Untappable, go forward if they can continue to race at a high level, and how his juveniles coming up race, because I do think that he's figured them out.
An exciting weekend of racing. Any one of these 4 races that you're going to be paying more attention to, or you think is more intriguing?
I think it depends on how you look at it. I think from a betting standpoint, the Iowa Derby is definitely the best betting race. For me as a fan, though, I'm really excited to see Tannery versus Riposte. I'm a big fan of both of these horses. Riposte, I just wrote a big thing about for Anonymous Man. You can check out there. Who you can see how much I love Riposte in that piece. And Tannery, was one I really kind of fell for last year. My favorite horse in training before she unfortunately passed was Lapping, and Tannery ran a very, very nice race against Lapping, which took my attention, and it's kind of been one I followed ever since then. So this is kind of a matchup I've really been waiting for.
Well, it should be an interesting weekend of races. I mean, for me, it's the Iowa Festival of Racing. That's kind of a traditional Midwest feature, and usually it's a nice card. And like I said, I've actually been down there a few times. It's always hot, it's windy, good food. What's really nice about Prairie Meadows is you can walk straight from the walking ring right straight to the track. So if you really like to be a body language handicapper, it's just a 10-feet walk, and you're right there to watch them go onto the track, and then they warm up, and then they come around the bend. So I was there when Concord Point won and when Hansen won, and a few years back I was there as well. But I think all 3 times I've been there, it's been over 90 degrees. So usually a hot day, and it's usually windy. So maybe they'll have to adjust those buyer speed figures again for the race. But it should be fun. And then I know for people that want all of the latest South American updates for the Big Cap, the Gold Cup, follow Sig Mendoza, because he is going to be writing and blogging and tweeting and living large the next few days with his South American imports in the Gold Cup at Santa Anita.
Yep.
Well, looking forward to next week's show. I know we're going to have the Los Ale Derby. We're going to have a great card from Belmont, so we'll talk about some of those. We'll quick recap what happened this week. Until next week, that's another edition of Down to the Wire.